So the military itself, young officers, and also some ranked officers became rather concerned about this. So when one looks at the statements made by the chiefs of the general staff, one should also keep in mind that some of those statements are addressed to the officers, to the young officers, to the ranked officers, in order to appease them, in order to give the impression to them that we are here, don't worry. If necessary, we would intervene. When one looks at Buchanan's statements during that period, for instance, you come across two types of statements. One is, he said at one point, if what is at stake is fatherland, vatan in Turkish, and homeland, every other consideration may be overlooked. And along the same lines, he made another statement, again, which one cannot consider as democratic, a very authoritarian. He said, in the days to come, on all important matters, that is constitutional amendments, the Kurdish issue, secularism and the like, the military will make its views known by everybody. So, but on the other hand, during that same period, what happened? Gül was elected, and Buchanan did not express any negative feelings. And Buchanan, during that period, concerning the this EU-oriented reforms, Professor Erbudan has mentioned, when these EU-oriented reforms had gone beyond what the military could live with, this was what Buchanan said. He said, we conveyed our views to the government on those reforms. And then he continued, some of those views were accepted, others were not. Now that the government enacted those reforms into law, it is our duty to comply with them. So you see, two different categories of statements, perhaps with address to different audiences, and also taking into account the context, those very difficult years Turkey was going through. Thank you.
We have time, I think, just for one more question over here.
Thank you very much. I'm David Cathell, Institute of Turkish Studies. We've looked at the military and we've looked at the courts, but we haven't really looked at the parties. And the parties themselves are not particularly democratic in and of themselves, and that the leadership can draw up the lists, who will be number one on the Istanbul list and the like. And I wonder if perhaps Metin Bey could give us some idea as to whether we will see in the near future, we do have elections coming up next year, that's probably already too late, but will we see increasing democratization within the parties themselves?
Let me ask Henri, since you didn't get a chance to respond.
The answer is no. No, jokes. The problem is with the political parties is, I mean, I did refer to earlier that when you look at the AKP, there's no democracy in the AKP, but of course the same thing applies to all parties, and has always been the case, but more so now than ever before. The issue is, yes, AKP is not a completely liberal party, and I criticize, but the other parties are not either, in any shape. I mean, they fail even on the market-oriented aspect of that I was talking about earlier. Here's the problem for Turkey. When you look at most countries, I'm talking about Western democracies to which Turkey belongs, you have a fairly good sense. You may not like the Republicans, you may not like the Democrats, but you kind of accept that the other one is a legitimate alternative. I mean, you can see Republicans coming to power even if you're a Democrat and running the country, and vice versa. I mean, maybe today's Tea Party people don't fit that, but anyway. Beyond that, I mean, that's true but in Turkey there doesn't seem to be, an acceptable alternance of power. In part because the opposition, as both Professors Hepar and Özbutun mentioned, the opposition just does opposition, has no, because those parties are not democratic, they're incapable of renewing themselves, they're incapable. I mean, it took a sex scandal to get rid of Baikal. And I'm not sure he's gone yet. I think he's going to come back at some point. So, until there's a real serious constitutional change, and to the question earlier about change, who should do it, it's not just the government, and it's not just parliament. I mean, Turkey needs a new constitution that comes with input from all aspects of society, that has buy-in from everybody, and a constitution that is going to be the last constitution Turkey will have. Right? It has to come from the bottom up. Until you do that and you make the changes accordingly, and political parties are also democratized as a result of that, you're not going to have change in Turkey.
We have to conclude, but let me ask the other two panelists if they would like to express briefly their view on this particular issue related to the parties.
I've been saying all kinds of wrong things today, but let me say one more wrong thing. Perhaps leader hegemony in Turkish political parties may be considered as a mixed blessing in some cases. I mean, when one looks at Justice and Development Party, among the rank and file, you see people more radical than those in the leadership cadres. And I think Recep Tayyip Erdogan played an important role in keeping those cadres under control, because if he had not been able to do that, then we might have been in trouble. Thank you.
Just a couple of words in support of Henry Barkey. Yes, the lack of internal party democracy and personalized style of leadership are well-known characteristics of Turkish politics in general. That is true for all major parties without an exception, and it's also true for all periods since the start of the multi-party politics. Personalized leadership of Menderes, of Demirel, of Erbakan, of Ecevit, of Baykal, without an exception. You may go back to Turkish history or Turkish political culture to explain it, but that is the case, and obviously AKP is no exception.
This concludes this panel. Let me thank the panelists for, I know it was difficult to stay within the 10 minutes, but they did a very good job, and I think they deserve commendation, and then turn the floor over to Jim.
Well, thank you all so much. It's been a great conference, and you can find the transcripts and the podcasts on our website. And thanks to our panelists and moderators, and thanks to you all for coming.